Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Cookiecast. Today on Cookiecast, it's the Darkest Timeline podcast. There'll be games, movies, gym talk, and probably something from the last week. So here we go. This is Cookiecast, the Darkest Timeline podcast. Right then. Oh, start off. I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait for all the sort of stupid noises to pass, and I know that one of them's going to catch me out, very much like that one did. Hello, it's Cookiecast, Darkest Timeline podcast. So I imagine this time last week I'll have been saying, it's still summer. I might have had the window open or something, or just commenting on, it still being summer and stuff. Right now I'm sitting in a jumper. In true British fashion, the weather has changed from shorts and t-shirt weather to 2 layers. I'm wearing quite a thick jumper. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's cold. I saw something saying that we're going to go rapidly into autumn. There's some geological shift or something, which means we've gone from summer to autumn in like a split second. Not a split second, but in a very short space of time. So yeah, summer is apparently over. Does it feel short? I wonder that each year. Obviously it's the Darkest Timeline podcast. One of the biggest things about the Darkest Timeline podcast is it's just me. This podcast is the first of 4 podcasts I've got to do this week. Don't have to, I choose to. I enjoy it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting fitting all that in. I imagine it'll be double podcast tomorrow, which will be the 2 footballs. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The NFL season has begun. Very exciting. Come to that later. And it'll be Can't See the Forest for the Tees. Then Wednesday we've got the wrestling podcast. So yeah, lots of coding to do this week. It'll be slightly easier next week because there won't be the wrestling, but yeah, a busy week of coding ahead. So yeah, the Darkest Timeline, usually just me. It's still just me, but for some reason the first thing on my list is about the Darkest Timeline guests. Honestly can't think why I wrote that down. I honestly can't think what it would have... I don't know. I think there was a point where, because I did the podcast with Donna, and I thought about having her on as a guest on this podcast, but ended up just doing like a special one-off podcast, which by all accounts has gone over very well. As I've said before, her podcast always goes over well. Maybe it was that. Maybe I thought at the time, maybe I should try and get some guests on for the Darkest Timeline. As of yet, I haven't done that. Looking through my list here, nothing to moan or complain about outside of the sort of the sections. I know I've said on previous podcasts, I don't think this will be a long one. So strap yourself in for 3 hours of podcast joy. Literally nothing that stands out this week. No, if I could have thought of something, I'd have probably written it down. I'm sure there was something, but I would have written it down. Anyway, sorry, let's carry on. Movies. I've only watched one movie this week, Now I'm trying to think in my head whether that's true. I have only watched one movie this week. Because instead of watching a movie the other night, we watched the American football. So, I watched Taken 3, which I bought on Blu-ray when I was on paternity leave. Because I was like, oh, you know, I've got the first two, and I've never seen the third one. So, I'll go through a thing of watching films and, buying films that I wanted to see, that I hadn't seen, trying to catch up on stuff that I've not seen. Always helps if I've not seen something to be able to stay awake when I needed to stay awake and stuff. Just like now, it helps when I'm in the gym, when I'm running, to watch something that I haven't seen, because it takes my mind off the fact that I'm running. So even though I'd bought it, I hadn't watched it, and then I saw that it was available on Netflix, so I was like, oh, I'll give that a watch. I really like the first Taken movie. It's a good film. I know a lot of people enjoyed that film, so there's no great news, no big surprise that I'm going to be like, oh, it was a good film. Second one, I think, probably suffered from sequel syndrome. You're always trying to recapture the whatever made the first one popular. I think I sort of feel that with John Wick 2. It was trying to capture what made the first one great. So Taken 2, a little bit lacking. One of the big things about the Taken films is that you're supposed to believe that that woman that plays his daughter is a child. Like, especially in the first one, you really got to sort of, you know, get on board with the fact that she is supposedly a child. I think I looked it up at one point. I think she's in her early 20s when she's supposedly played a teenager. And obviously, as each film goes on, she is just older each time. At least in the third one, they're not trying to make out that she's like a little girl, which they very much are in the first one. It's very strange. So yeah, the second one, it was a good film, but definitely suffered from sequel syndrome. So I watched the third one. In the first Taken, the premise being is that it's a man who's trying to get his daughter back, you know, and you can buy into stuff. There's like when he first goes to France, there's stuff that happens outside of the airport that you're like, well, there's like a lot of commotion going on. One man has caused a lot of problems there, but he's trying to save his daughter, so you kind of allow it. Even in the second one, when stuff happens, you know, he's trying to save his family, so he's trying to save himself, he's trying to save his family. You're kind of on board with that. By the third one, I don't know why, but something that really stuck out in the third one was, I'm like, the collateral damage in that film is way off the charts. And I'm like, it's not acceptable because of what happened. I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen it and you want to give it a watch, sort of thing. But the collateral damage aspect of that film really sticks out. It's like, this guy, you know, he's trained, he can do all these things, but it's very, he can just kind of do what he wants. So that very much stands out. Something else that's weird, actually, I know that this is annoying when I do this, but I'm just going to look something up quickly, because I'm wondering if they've changed the actor to play the same part. Right. What was the stepdad's name in the first Taken? Yeah. So the other thing that stands out quite a lot about the third one is they've changed the actor for the stepdad. Or have they? Because he's listed as a different name there. Has she remarried? It's a little bit confusing. The stepdad still has the same first name in the first one as he does in the third one, but then in the third one he seems to have an additional surname, which I can't say was mentioned. And I don't think that character is in the second one, because the whole thing's set in a different country. Anyway, we're getting away from... So, few things really stuck out in the third one. Like I say, the collateral damage is quite high for like the story, and this actor change stuck out quite a bit to me. And then there's just this, you get to the end and he's done his thing, and you got to the end of the story and he's talking to the police, and the police are like, oh, we could arrest you for this, and we could arrest you for that, we could arrest you for the other, and that isn't what happens. And I'm like, again, you've got to suspend the disbelief by this point, because it's like, nah, that he'd be going to prison for a long time. Even though he wasn't guilty of the crime they were chasing him for, he would be going to prison for a long time, purely for collateral damage sake, and all the other crimes he committed throughout the process of that film. So yeah, it was good, but I think the first one was a great film, the second one was a good film, the third one was good, but had these glaring issues. So yeah, give it a whirl if you've seen the others, the other two. Give it a crack. It was worth a watch, I'll say that much. So, as is the way things go, finished a film, had to find another film to watch. Scrolling through Netflix, which is hard when you're running on a treadmill. I say running, moving slightly quicker than walking on a treadmill. So I'm scrolling through. Then I'm like, oh, I remember a film that I'd seen a trailer for that I wanted to watch. It was a Netflix original. So I really fancied watching Mother, which from the trailer looked like a film where the world has ended. There is a facility that has a robot that uses the machinery that's there to create a child and raise this child, and the robot is called Mother. And then from the trailer, this isn't a spoiler unless you haven't seen the trailer, a female human comes from the outside where supposedly everybody is dead. And then you're not sure. It's like a who's telling the truth kind of thing. Is it the human woman or is it the robot mother character? I was like, yeah, that was interesting. I'll give it a whirl. Like with a lot of things, you got to give these things a try. Something that struck me, I put it on and I watched 10-15 minutes maybe. The beginning of that film's heartbreaking. I was struggling watching it, because it's like there's this little embryo, and then it turns into a baby, and then the robot has to raise this baby, and there was just this one bit where the robot's trying to give a toddler different toys, because the toddler's crying, and the toddler, each time it gives it a toy, the toddler's shaking its head, and it was it was just heartbreaking trying to watch that. I was struggling to watch that whilst, like I say, running on a treadmill. But I will go back and I'll continue watching that. I'll do a review of that probably this time next week. So yeah, that is movies done. That's movies for this week. I had intended to watch another film the other night, but like I say, ended up watching the American football. Did I mention that football season has started? Right, so that gets us straight onto games. So I treated myself to a game. It's very unusual for me to treat myself, due to A, lack of funds, and B, there's always someone or something better to spend my money on. So I bought a game, I got a demo, and I had a beta. So that's a real mixed bag. I'm going to do them in a slightly strange order, because I'm going to talk about the beta, then I'll talk about the demo, then I'll talk about the game I bought. So, this weekend was the Ghost Recon Breakpoint beta. Now, I didn't get the opportunity to do the alpha because I think you had to have pre-ordered the game. I'll never pre-order a game. These days anyway. I rarely see a point to it. It's not often that games sell out. So I didn't pre-order it. Didn't get the option to do the alpha. Oh, excuse me. So I signed up to the beta and actually got accepted for the beta. So it was Thursday to... Well, somebody was saying it was today. I thought it was yesterday, but apparently it ends today. Which wouldn't tie into the dates, but hey, an extra day is always good. Where do we start with this? So I knew a couple of people who had played the alpha, and they'd talked about what it was like as a game. My response to what they told me was, oh, if that's the game that they're planning on releasing, then I ain't buying it. It sounded awful. It really didn't appeal to me. It was very much a, oh right, okay, it's just a cash grab. Like any game that releases now, it's just a cash grab. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Ghost Recon Wildlands was created by a team of 30 people, and it is an exceptional game. You can tell that it was made with love. 30 people probably put their heart and soul into that game, and it shows. Very few games that come out these days that come out, standout games. The Witcher 3, for the most part. Games that really stand out, God of War, Spider-Man, things like that. These games that really do stand out as masterpieces. I don't care what anybody says. Ghost Recon Wildlands should be put up there with that. The amount of time and effort that must have gone into that game is off the charts. I'm a huge Ghost Recon fan. Anybody who's listened to any of the podcasts will know that Wildlands is always getting a mention as a great game. I do feel, I'm going to say this now, I do feel that is probably clouding my judgment of the new one. It's not short of saying that I love that game. That game has a special place in my heart for various different reasons. I own 2 copies of it. I own a PS4 and an Xbox One. It is one of the only games I've ever bought a DLC for. All of this stuff you already know if you've ever listened to a podcast that we've done. So that's that. That is probably clouding my judgment. So they're like, oh, you know, there's this and there's that and there's the other. I saw trailers for Breakpoint. I saw development teams talking about it. So here's the thing. A team of 30 people made Wildlands. And they're now going, over 1,000 people have made Breakpoint. Right, that sounds awful to me. And I know if you're not as in the know about games and stuff, you're going to think, well, why? Why would it be? You know, 1,000 people all working on the same thing, that must be a great thing. No, because that's 1,000 people all who have their hands out. Every single one of those people wants to get paid. 30 people want to make a great game. And I imagine, I saw Ghost Recon Wildlands in a supermarket a few months ago, and it was still selling at nearly full price. So I imagine those 30 people will have made their money, or certainly Ubisoft will have made money off that game. 1,000 people have all got their hands out and have all got mouths to feed and all that. All that says to me is we need to find as many ways possible to make money from this game. That's a bad thing, because when people are trying to make money, they're not trying to make games, they're trying to make money. It's just a horrible, horrible combination of things. So then the things start creeping in. Oh, it's going to have a PvP. Oh, it's going to have a hub. Oh, it's going to have this. Oh, you can play with this person. Oh, you can do this thing with this person. Oh, you can fight against this person. All the buzzwords that I hate. And they've done it to a franchise that I love. So that's that. I got accepted for the beta. I was like, right, it's time for me to see what this game's about. First thing has to be that the beta, I got it on the PS4. If I'm honest, I think I should have got it on the Xbox One, because anybody I know who's played the beta on the Xbox One had no real issues. The PS4 beta was an absolute shit show. There was a glitch in the game on the second day, which meant you couldn't access any of your things like grenades or consumable stuff. One of the things that meant was that you couldn't heal yourself. One of the big things about this game is that you can bandage your wounds. Not if there's a glitch stopping you accessing your bandages. So the game basically, the beta basically became unplayable toward the end of the second day. So that's one thing we've got to get out of the way. As a beta, it was terrible. It was appalling. Ubisoft should be ashamed to put shit like that out. If you're putting something out that you want people to play to get an idea of, make it so that people can actually play it would be a good idea. I know the reason for a beta is to iron out bugs before the game's released, but jeebus, this was terrible. If I'm honest, a couple of days in, I hated it to start with. The controls are awful. I couldn't change all of the... I like my view inverted. So when I pull back on the stick, I want to look up. I want that for everything. There should just be one option that says, invert this. But there was about 50. And changing some of them changed things the wrong way. It was a nightmare. Got to the point that I had to live with the fact that I couldn't change the view for the drone or the helicopter, so I just had to leave it. Awful concept. So that was that. That was an annoyance. But it got to the point where I actually wanted to like the game, because the first day I spent hating it. Then there was that glitch that made me hate it even more. But I could see some of the things that they were trying to do, and I was like, okay, right, I kind of see what you've got going on here. I kind of see where you're trying to take this. It's a little bit more interesting to me than it was. So, one of the things that people have criticised the game about is that you don't have your team. It's just the character Nomad on his own. And they were like, oh, we're going to put the team back in. The team that you have in Wildlands, one of the characters you see in a cutscene, one of the characters you meet lying in a hospital bed, and one is MIA. To my knowledge, you get a new team. There's you, who's Nomad. Oh, well, take from this what you will. I'm just going to tell you who the characters are from what I've seen. Asian guy, woman, big black guy, a Nomad who is a white guy with a beard. I'm just going to put that there and walk away from it. So that seems to be the team. What they decided for the beta was, this is a game that is supposed to be played with a team. You're supposed to play it with friends, or you play it with the AI team, or whatever. That's how this game is going to be played. So for the beta, we're not going to give you the team. Right. That probably isn't a good idea, because that means I don't get the real feel for the game. Cool. It also means that there are missions where a lot of, right, the last Ghost Recon and this one are all about, there's a base, it's full of enemies, find the best way to infiltrate the base and get out what it is that's in there that you need. Whether it's just taking over the base, or you need to get a piece of information, or you need to get a piece of equipment, or whatever, do that. Which was nigh on impossible to do with one player. And I know some of you are thinking, well, why didn't you why didn't you join up with other people to play? No, I don't do that. So, there was that aspect. There's some things I actually ended up quite liking. There's this bivouac system where you could sort of set up camp before you go into an area and equip perks and like damage resistance and different things like that. There was challenges around your skills and stuff, which was quite interesting. You can buy vehicles, and then at the bivouac you can assign which vehicle you're going to use. That was actually okay. When I first heard about this bivouac system, I wasn't overly enamoured with the idea. Having used it, it's kind of cool. I can see where that's sort of going. Initially, I hated the way they'd done the weapons, but the more I got into the weapons, and you equip a weapon, then you equip your various different bits for it, like your scopes and your you put like silencers on them and stuff. But you can also upgrade the weapons. I actually ended up really liking that system, even though when I started playing it was super complicated. Short version is all the stats for weapons basically mean very little. There's some cool guns. Got some cool sniper rifles and assault rifles and stuff like that. In there is the possibility of a good game. It's just nowhere near that now. And this game comes out in a few weeks. At this point in time, that game is not ready. I don't believe I'll be getting it at launch. I'll certainly be waiting for a lot of reviews on it. The world that they created for Wildlands was great. There was various different areas. Mountains had snow, desert areas, jungle areas, various things like that. This just seems to be like one long empty jungle. It makes for an absolute nightmare to drive vehicles through, no matter what vehicles they are. The vehicles are awful. They sound terrible. They drive awful. Like I say, the controls are really bad. They're sluggish as hell. The vehicles drive really badly. There's big issues with that game. And believe me, by a certain point, I actually wanted to try and like it. And there were aspects that I did like, but there was way too much about that beta that I didn't like. I feel, if I'm honest, that they're probably rushing it out the door just to, you know, get those 1,000 people their money and make Ubisoft a few more million. It's just a cash grab, and it's a shame because you're going to really piss off the people that pay your bills. But games companies like Ubisoft and other companies like that don't particularly give a shit about the people that pay their bills, which is weird and ironic and all that sort of stuff. Here we're going to release bad games to give us money. Seems to be a theme these days, isn't it, Bethesda? So I played the beta. I believe it was supposed to end yesterday. Often when they do betas, they give you an extra day or an extra 12 hours or whatever just to really eke out the last bits of what's wrong with the game and try and fix it before release. That game will have a humongous day one patch, I bet you now. So yeah, that was the beta. Not great. I'll certainly be waiting for reviews and other people to have played it before I go anywhere near it. So I saw a video the other day talking about a game I'd heard of before, but very much like what the video said. It said there was a game called Code Vein, which, like I said, I'd heard of before, but hadn't seen anything of it for a long time. And this is what the video said. I think it was a game that had a lot of traction to start with, but had kind of been scrapped. But then not only is it back, they've released this playable demo, which they're calling a trial version. Yeah, the video looked interesting. It was some vampire sort of game. I was like, it's a demo, give it a cheeky download sort of thing, which I did. Downloaded it, played it a little bit. Obviously with having the beta coming up, I got the Code Vein demo a little bit before the beta, and obviously the beta, you've only got a few days. So basically I've just poured all my time into the beta. Played a little bit of the demo. It's kind of interesting. It's very Japanese. But that's not a bad thing. It strikes me, it feels like if you had like the Dark Souls games, or Demon Souls, if you remember that one. If you had the Dark Souls games but took the difficulty out of it, it's yeah, it's an interesting game. It's like you go around like it's like a dungeon sort of thing, and you have different weapons, you have different abilities. You appear to be a vampire, but there doesn't really seem to be any gameplay around being a vampire. You just seem to have abilities. Like one of your things will allow you to shoot fire. You get various different weapons. One of them is like a gun with a bayonet on the end. Just things like that. You can get like massive axes and stuff. And you just go around, but the map is completely black when you start, and as you go around you reveal bits of the map. Various things you do reveal more bits of the map. You can, once you get to points, you can level up, and you can level up your abilities and buy new abilities. And honestly, it seems perfectly fine. I played it a little bit. I went back to it and played it again, and I'll go back to it once this beta finishes. A game I will certainly keep an eye out for, because I think it was quite an interesting concept. The character building seemed quite interesting. I made a proper vampire looking guy, really sort of gothic. His eyes were like red and white, and he had what seemed like face tattoos and stuff. Made him look real vampire. So yeah, it was cool. I enjoyed it, and you know, for a demo, they're free. you sort of, you get a taste of the game, and it gives you an idea whether you want to buy it. Probably one of those that I'm not going to rush out. It's not a day one purchase for me at this point in time. I'll continue playing this trial version and see how I get on with it. And yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye out for it. So that is the Code Vein demo. Right, so I bought a game. I bought a game that I'd been mildly interested in up to the point just before it came out and all the reviews started coming out. Now, the weird thing is, this is a game that's on the Switch. So very much like my friend Pedro, I could only get it on the Switch. So I kept an eye on it, and I was like, Switch games, they're expensive, all this. Before it came out, its price was less than most games. It was like £41, which is cheap for games in this day and age. I was like, ooh, that's not a good sign. It's a Switch game, it should be 60 quid. So that was worrying. And then the reviews started coming out for it, and it was getting like 9 out of 10 everywhere, 10 out of 10 and stuff like this. Everybody was raving about it. I wasn't sure I could afford to get it, and if I'm if I'm honest, I couldn't afford to get it, which is why I didn't buy it day one. And then I convinced myself that I don't often buy myself things. I don't often buy games these days. A, because there aren't any to buy, and B, because I don't really have the money to just buy games like I used to. So I convinced myself I was going to buy it, and then the problem came in. Firstly, it was sold out everywhere. Like, all the shops in York, like the 2 games that are in York, both sold out. Various other places that I could have gone to get it, sold out. The other thing was, I could have got it from Amazon, but the price had rocketed on it. So, because it was selling out places, people were putting the prices up. I'm like, man, what's the deal with this game? I don't even think I've said what game it is. It's a game called Astral Chain, which you play a police officer, which, yeah, who has the ability to summon these, they're like monsters, they're like weapons, they're attached to you by a chain, so, astral chain. And you can sort of control, send the monster out to fight for you, and you can fight, and that. Little did I know at the time that wasn't all the game was. There's like an investigation aspect to the game. Anyway, managed to find that Argos was selling it at a reasonable price. They were selling it at the original price. So I reserved a copy. Whilst waiting to get the copy, I saw a thing on the Argos app where you could pay for it through your phone. So I was like, cool, I'll pay for it. So I pressed the thing. Payment failed. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I've not got enough reception. I'll try again. Oh, payment failed. Okay, I'll try again. Payment failed. All right, whatever, I'll just pay for it when I get there. Randomly checked my emails to see 3 emails from Argos saying thanks for your order. Apparently I wanted the game that badly that I bought 3 copies of it. Argos probably want to have a look at their app and find out why when it's saying payment failed, it's actually payment complete. So I had to go and sort all that out, get through the process of getting the refund on 2 of the 3 items I'd bought. So, Astral Chain is, you play a police officer, unfortunately, and you've got this monster that's a weapon type thing. I've played a little bit. Like I say, again, the beta has taken me away from playing that, and the TV downstairs is on the fritz, so the picture keeps bringing up like information on the screen, so it's blocking the screen. So I've had to play a little bit of the game on the handheld aspect of the Switch, which is fine for some stuff. I played all of my friend Pedro on the portable version of the Switch, but I really wanted to play this on the TV. So I was a bit like, oh man. I have played a little bit on the portable just for ease. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I say, I didn't realise that it had this this investigation element to it. So that's interesting. I don't know how long it's going to be interesting for. I played a little bit today whilst I was sat, and the investigation bit was stopping me from progressing in the game, which was a little bit annoying. But I managed to find the bit I needed to find and do the bit I needed to do. So that was cool. I spoke to Sam. He has also got it. He kind of convinced me to get it a bit more, because he was like, oh man, this game's amazing. Oh man, it's getting amazing reviews. I'm definitely buying it. Sam doesn't buy games new, so I was like, oh wow, okay. Spoke to him today. He said that there are 11 cases in the game. He's done 6 of them, and he's been playing it for 11 hours. So this is a long game. So really I need to get stuck into it to see what this game's all about. So far I'm enjoying it. Sometimes I get the feeling with certain games, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get to a point where I'm not going to enjoy this, or I'm going to get stuck, or it's going to wind me up, or whatever. At the moment that hasn't happened. There was danger of it happening today. I would have ended up Googling or asking Sam, as he's further on than I am. But that wasn't the case, so hopefully I'll get a chance to play a bit later on, and hopefully I'll be able to give you more of a review when I've played more of it. So that is the games section of the podcast. Normally at this point in time I'd sing the tune that goes ba 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 ba, which is the NFL. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday. So not all of the games, the first week of games I've played, but the last game I'll play tonight. Yeah, NFL's back. I'm not going to talk about it because, you know, if you want to listen to me talk about NFL, you will tune into our NFL podcast. But yeah, in a lot of ways this is the best part of the year, because, you know, it's something I look forward to, and then it comes round and it's like, yeah, you get to watch the games, you get to interact with other people, we're talking about the games and stuff. You also, for a lot of us, we've got the fantasy aspect, which is a big thing. I drafted 2 amazing teams in 2 fantasy leagues, and at this point in time both of those teams have absolutely shit the bed and let me down massively. So week 1 has been a humongous bust for me. I left massive amounts of points on my bench, but like I say, you're not going to listen to me talk about NFL, because if you were, you'd be tuning into the NFL podcast. What I can say is it's a great feeling when American football comes back. Anybody who's into a sport or a kind of sport, you'll know what it's like when it's not around. You know what it's like when it comes back. It's really enjoyable. I got a new hat for this season. I got a new jersey for this season. I'll be able to start rolling the jerseys back out again, because as with it being autumn and winter, it's a great time to wear jerseys. And yeah, new hat. So super excited about the NFL being back. Do tune into the NFL podcast if you have any interest in that. I was going to talk about the fact that I've been struggling to sleep, but I imagine it would just be a boring conversation. So that it's kind of the end. You know how I like to wrap things up. I've got 2 things to wrap things up with here. Still been hitting the gym. This weekend has been a bit of one of those where it's been a case of took a little bit of time off the gym. Every now and then I have a day off. I actually took an extra day off because, as I say, been struggling to sleep on a night, and I'm just absolutely exhausted. And knowing from various bits of research and stuff that I have always done around weight loss and working out and exercise and stuff like that, being tired doesn't help your progression. So I made the executive decision to take an extra day off the gym. I will be going to the gym this evening, so don't panic and start thinking I'm sacking it off. I've gone like every other day. I even went out to the music quiz on Thursday, and that finished at 11 o'clock, and I still went to the gym after that. I've been keeping up with running. The thing I'm trying to do at the moment is I'm trying to do as many K in one go. So, and by that I mean I'll run a K, I'll run a kilometre, I'll have a short break, I'll run another one, I'll have a short break, I'll run another one to see how many I can get through. Just trying to get that distance back up. It's going okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about was weight loss. So weight loss had stopped. So on top of having an extra day off from the gym, I had a bit of a cheat weekend, and by that I mean I was just a little bit slacker on the rules. The weight loss had completely stopped on this low carb diet, and as I keep saying about it, I need to see results. I have to see results, otherwise it's just not working. And there's been a couple of weeks at least where there's been nothing. So I was like, I'm gonna have my cheat meal, but then I'm gonna have a little bit extra here and there. As it was, I think I went an entire day without eating, and then had like a cheat meal in the evening. So I imagine that kind of balances itself out. Not great, I am aware of that. Today I've been back on it. I had broccoli and corn fillets with some cheese for lunch, and I had 3 vegetarian sausages for breakfast, and I got super hungry this afternoon, so I had some nuts. I'm back on it. So here's the weird one. Got on the scales this morning. I was like, oh man, I've slackened off a little bit. I better put loads of weight on. Because that's how my body is. The minute it gets a sniff of anything that's, remotely bad for you, it just absorbs it and puts it on as weight. So after a weekend of being a little bit slack, I had lost weight when I got on the scales this morning. Honestly, can't understand it. I can only presume it's sort of some kind of kickstart that my body needed. I presume the weight loss had stopped, and having a little bit of the stuff that I've been cutting out might have just jump-started my system again. I do not know. It's very weird. But I lost, it wasn't a lot of weight. I'm not going to tell you it was, but I lost some weight. Weirdest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, still hitting the gym, still doing the running. I've upped my weights, even though I said I wasn't going to. The way that it works with weights is I've got to do something. So I'm nearly, in some exercises, I'm nearly back to the weight that I ended on, which is interesting. And I imagine, knowing the way that I go with these things, that weight will continue to increase. I have been looking at some proper, like my old routines, and thinking, you know, can I still do the running and start working my routines back in? I don't know if I'm quite there yet. Still want to get some of this weight down, but who knows what I no, that's not true. I imagine that what will happen is the workout routines will start filtering back in, and I will just have to commit to keeping on with the running. But yes, I will keep you posted on that one, as I'm sure you're enthralled by it. So there we go. That is the Darkest Timeline podcast for this week. Potentially a short and sweet one. Let's have a look at the time. Yeah, about average as it has been recently. Thank you all for tuning in. Seeing some good numbers for this podcast, which is always, you know me, I always appreciate it. I've deleted the wrong thing from my list. Hitting the gym. I always appreciate the numbers. I always appreciate anybody taking the time out to listen to this and me and all that sort of stuff. So big thank you from me. Rather than rambling, I'll say bye, and I will speak to you next week. Bye. So there you go then. What do you think to that? Another one done, another week gone, another podcast in the bag. YouTube watchers, make sure you're YouTube subscribers, like, share, click for notifications, all the good stuff. Everybody can go over to the Cookiecast.com, check us out over there, drop us some love, social media, email, all the love. Yep, so until next week, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye.